Good evening. Welcome to the December board meeting of the Salem-Keizer Transit District. This evening's meeting, we have several things on our calendar. We will have our consent calendar, which will include some approval of minutes and some routine business items. And then we will go on to our action items, which will include appointing a new member to the Special Transportation Advisory Committee, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Keizer for the installation of a traffic light at the Keizer Station location, and authorize the General Manager to negotiate a sole source contract for additional design for the Keizer Transit Center Signalized intersection, and the adoption of resolution to revise the district's advertising policy. Following that, we will have reports, and we'll have some information about service changes that will take effect in January, and then various reports, including the first quarter performance report, the trip choice report for the first quarter, finance report for the first quarter, and the board subcommittee reports, and then just general reports from our board and general manager. With that, I will call the meeting to order and call on Director Lincoln to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes or adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move forward. We do not have any presentations this evening, so we're into the period of public comment. And Mr. Jaffe, I believe, would like to speak to us. Might mention that public comment is limited to 3 minutes.
So good evening, and first I want to thank you for West Salem Connector. I'm in my traveling clothes today. That's getting the bus home. And didn't want to get too dressed up transiting through the snow. 2 years ago, when the connector wasn't available, I did have to walk up and down the hills and watch my neighbors slide up and down, but I did take transit to get in, and I'm doing it again today, but now with the connector, so thank you for the connector. Came to talk about 2 items. One is good news, as Director Krebs knows. We've been working very hard over the last year, and I was here in May to talk about CMAQ funds, these federal funds that our area has been eligible for many years. Later this month, we think we'll have an agreement approved by the Oregon Transportation Commission to provide our area with over $7 million of CMAQ funds. And we're having discussions of how those funds can be used. My policy committee met about a week ago, and a good portion of those funds will probably be used for purchasing buses. That's the proposal. So I think it's $4.2 million is what the district requested, and I think that will be actually provided. In addition to some other transit proposals for ITS. So that's good news for the district. Now, we've provided a lot of funds over the years. I just don't know how often I come to the board to kind of talk about this or tell you what we do. We provide about 20% of our MPO funds, Scotts MPO funds, to the transit district. And that's for everything from the rideshare TDM program, planning studies, replacing buses, CGN tanks, bus shelters, and then many projects that aren't necessarily transit direct, but are ancillary to transit, like all the sidewalks that we've been putting in on Brown Road and Chamal Road and soon to be on Hayesville and other places in order to make our system more multimodal. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and the next round we'll have, like I said, I think we'll have money for CMAQ funds and some ITS funds and future rounds of CMAQ. But the reason that really drew me to come tonight was something on your agenda item, which was the advertising on buses. As Director Kelly may remember, I might have talked to her after an MWAC meeting about saying, we're very concerned about the increase in pedestrian deaths, and you saw the handout that I gave you. Unfortunately, traffic fatalities are on the rise here in Scats, and particularly pedestrian deaths. And unfortunately, I heard about 2 of them in Portland yesterday, the same road, 3 hours apart. We're traveling more after the recession, and it's a concern all over the state. But one measure, and we'll be doing a lot of measures to improve safety, but one measure that I have talked to some of your staff and Director Kelly is, once you have an advertising policy, as you're going to discuss tonight, I think it would be a terrific idea to partner with the state, with us, the city, whoever it needs to be, to bring to the attention this issue and to be encouraging to our community to be more careful about pedestrians on our street and crossing our roads, including many that are, your customers that are getting to and from their homes on the buses. So I brought this visual rather than any kind of report. I thought pictures speak 1,000 words. The kind of examples of pedestrian safety messages that have been on buses in other communities, including Oregon. And finally, that federal regulations, I guess in the bureaucratic side of things, but federal regulations have been stressing more performance measures. And one of the major ones is a safety performance measure. So as an MPO and as a transit district, we're going to have to demonstrate how we are trying to make the system not only more efficient, but more safe. So we'll be working on many things to try to do that, in addition to this kind of an example, like pedestrian crossings, for example, or even things you don't think about, the reflectors on traffic signals to make them more visible. In order to bring these numbers down, that's the whole point. To bring these numbers down. And we'll be expected as an MPO to put together plans to try to do that. And we hope we can work as partners with you to do everything we can to improve safety in the area. So that's my 3 minutes. Thank you very much, and take any questions you have.
Thank you. Any comments from board members? Director Kelly?
Mike, thanks for reminding us that the advertising could do some of the things like this. I know that there may possibly be money through the traffic safety people at the state to do some of these things, and I know some of the other districts have, so thank you very much. Some of them are really light and bright, but I'm also going to take this opportunity to remind everybody that if you're going to be walking or riding your bicycle, as much as possible, have something that's really reflective. More places than just a little place, but stripes or something like that, because it really does help. Keeps you safer, and it keeps the motorists safer too.
And I forgot to bring one tonight, but I should have brought one tonight.
Director Lincoln?
I agree completely that this is a real serious concern, because I ride and walk a lot, and I try to be as visible as possible, but I see people all the time who are not visible who are out there. But and we've talked about this. I'm on the Traffic Safety Committee for Keizer too. Talked about how to get the word out about what you should look like at night when you're walking around, and it costs money to buy posters or to put advertising up. And we've talked about a public service announcement or something we could publish on a website or something. But so I guess one of my questions is, are there any funds for this, for groups that want to actually try to get the word out more?
I think my short answer is yes, there are funds. And I think the first step is to find agreement that we want to do this, and then put together a grant request. Now, if we can get the state to chip in, and they have in Bend, I know that I saw something last year or 2 years ago in their improvement program about funding these kind of safety messages for the Bend system. So I think what we need to do is first get support of this idea, and then either seek outside funds or seek even our own MPO funds if that has to be done, or in-kind funds, possibly increasing or expanding what your travel options program does. Maybe this is a component of travel options, safe travel. So there are probably many avenues to get funding, but let's first be working together to say this is important.
Well, you certainly got my support, and I expect everyone on the board also.
Yeah.
It's a hard issue not to support.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, one more comment?
I just wanted to thank you for, apparently you're the one responsible for our $4.2 million, and I think that.
Well, I've been working a lot this year on it, I should say, so.
I think that we owe you a debt of gratitude for that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment at this time? If not, we will move on to our next item, which is the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second?
Do we have a second? Sure. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we'll move on to our action items, and the first, I'll call on our general manager to introduce the first action item.
Great. Thank you. The first item is appointments to the STF Advisory Committee, and Diane Lace, representing Tanya DeHart, the chair of the advisory committee, is here this evening.
Good evening. So Diane Lace, the vice chair on the advisory committee. We have 3 recommendations. One is to appoint Ron Harding to fill the vacancy position number 1 beginning January 1st, 2017, and he'll serve till December 31st, 2018. We would also like to reappoint Margie Byers to a second term for position 3, again starting January 1st, 2017, ending December 31st, 2018. And we're asking to accept the resignation of Gerald Hefner, who filled position, 2, to be effective immediately.
Are there any comments or questions?
I met the applicant last month, and he seems eminently qualified. Marcia Byers has been doing a good job, and the resignation should be accepted. He's not been able to attend. All making excellent sense. Do we need a motion?
Was that a motion?
Yes, if there's a recommended motion. I move we accept the recommendation of the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee for new members, continuing members, and resignations.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thanks
So we'll move
for-
on to the next item,
Thanks for coming tonight.
which is the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Keizer.
Thanks. Steve Dickey, Director of Transportation Development, will present the report.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. Tonight, we want to bring to you 2 items that are very related. The first is a question of shall the board authorize the general manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Keizer to establish cost-sharing requirements for the construction of a signalized intersection and adjacent required traffic improvements needed to improve access to Keizer Transit Center. This is a project that has been going on for a number of years, since it's related to our Keizer Transit Center. In 2009, if you recall back then, if you were on the board, we finally had a site selected in Keizer that was located near the Keizer Station retail complex. And it was selected as a location where we would have good access to multiple through streets, both east and west and north and south, on the north end of our service district. In 2011, the city of Keizer adopted a master plan for what they called Area B, which is the area where our Keizer Transit Center is located, as well as the adjacent properties that are across Keizer Station Boulevard from the transit center. One element that was included in the master plan was a signalized intersection at the location now that is where the entrance to the transit center is. In 2010, a scope of work was developed for the engineering and design of the Keizer Transit Center. We included in that the development of a signalized intersection, primarily because it would grant us better flow and access in and out of our transit center. It would allow our buses both to turn right or left out of the center, as well as allowing customers using the park and ride to also enter and exit in any direction that they would choose. However, when we received our cost estimates initially in the design phase, the cost estimates really were at a level where we had to make some decisions as to what to include and what not to include. And in conferring with our operations staff, it was determined that while not optimal, we could function without that signal and use a right-in, right-out only function. We built this transit center, opened it up, went into operations. It's been functioning okay, but we do lose a lot of time. In fact, if you're looking at the amount of time that we lose each time a bus has to circulate through Keizer Station, multiplied times the number of buses that serve Keizer Station, the number of routes, times the number of times a day, it's about 9 service hours a day that we lose by going through there. The other piece of this is once we got done constructing the site, we actually came in significantly under the projected budget for the project and had remaining grant funds available to do additional work. That combined with the evaluation of our service needs, the time lost in circulating through the Keizer Station, it was determined that the best interest of the district would be to go ahead and proceed with constructing the signalized intersection. This will be a fully functional signalized intersection with pedestrian crossings as well. And it will allow access in and out of our transit center, as well as will create access into future development on the opposite side in the opposite side of Keizer Station Boulevard. And as a result of this, though, we had to go into a cost-sharing agreement with the city of Keizer. Since both jurisdictions will receive benefit from this, it was determined that there should be some shared cost involved. We initially had proposed a shared arrangement with the city of Keizer that would have been reflective of the amount of traffic would have been generated by the properties associated with each agency. It would have been involved with analysis of square footage of space on each side, a number of cars anticipated coming in and out. When we presented that to the Federal Transit Administration, they indicated to us that anything that was above the amount of our local match share with the grant that we had would be considered overmatch, and we could not use our full amount of federal money if we proceeded with that approach. In our negotiations with the city of Keizer, then we reevaluated our approach and presented them with an opportunity for them to pay the local match, which would be the maximum amount that would then not reduce our ability to leverage the maximum federal share. So on the 21st of November, this intergovernmental agreement that is part of your packet was presented to the City Keizer City Council. It passed unanimously. Director Bush was present at that meeting as well. And so tonight, we are asking the Board of Directors to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the Salem Area Mass Transit District and the City of Keizer to establish cost-sharing requirements for the construction of the signalized intersection and adjacent required traffic improvements. And I'll talk a little bit more about the adjacent traffic improvements in the next agenda item.
Are there any questions or comments? I have one question, and that is, after this is installed, the City of Keizer will operate and maintain the signals?
Well, it's interesting that the intersections and signals are the right-of-way. We are not taking possession of the right-of-way for the street improvements and the sidewalks. Those will still be owned by the City of Keizer. Signals within the Salem-Keizer area are under the jurisdiction of the City of Salem. And they actually operate all of the signals other than the handful of signals that are within ODOT properties. Even in the City of Keizer has an agreement with the City of Salem to operate in the controls of those signals and sequence those signals so that they're functioning correctly. What I'm not clear on, and we will have to get back with you on, is if there are maintenance issues with the signals themselves, whether that would be our responsibility or the City of Salem. I know City of Keizer does not do the maintenance of the signals themselves. That's part of the agreement with the City of Salem.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Are we ready for a motion? Director Bush?
I move the board authorize the general manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Keizer to establish cost-sharing requirements for the construction of a signalized intersection and adjacent required traffic improvements needed to improve access to the Keizer Transit Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And now we're on to the next item, which is the sole source contract for design of the Keizer Transit Center signalized intersection.
Steve Dickey will also present that report.
So to pick up with the last part of the previous motion that talks about the other improvements. In September of 2014, we released a request for proposals to solicit design services for the development of this intersection. And through that process, we selected Kittleson and Associates, and we engaged in the negotiation process for an architectural and engineering contract and negotiated a price and entered into contract with them. That was based on improving the intersection that we just discussed, a full service intersection with full left and right turn access in and out of our transit center as well as on the opposite side. When we began to have our initial, what we would call kickoff meetings with the City of Keizer, they notified us that the traffic studies and analysis that they had done in the overall development, which included some of the master plan with the Area B, but also their overall traffic studies for the greater Keizer Station development, indicated that if we had a full turning access intersection at the Keizer Transit Center location, the traffic that we generated in combination with the commercial traffic coming from the other side would then push the traffic management that is downstream towards, and this is in a direction because of the way Keizer Station Boulevard turns, depending on what you're looking, whether it would be to the west or to the south, but it is the next intersection where Shamawa and Lockhaven and Keizer Station Boulevard all come together. The capacity of that intersection, especially for vehicles that would be turning left towards the freeway, would be exceeded at times with the additional traffic that would be flowing in that direction. So as part of this project, we are required to do some modifications to that intersection as well, which is the addition of another left turn lane, because we don't have enough depth or length, is what we would look at, of a left turn lane to handle the vehicles queuing up without bleeding into the through lane at that location. So City of Keizer traffic engineers have determined that it is a requirement that a second left turn lane be added, which requires then a widening of Keizer Station Boulevard from our intersection on up to the approach of the next intersection, and some modifications to the signal mast and arms that are on that corner, because it will be moved over, which will need a longer arm and a relocation of the mast. In order to design, and those additional pieces of work still fit within the funding capacity that we have with the grant and with the match money that City of Keizer is providing. But the design work that is needed to be done to accommodate the additional work was not included in the original contract with Kittleson. And so the purpose of this request tonight is to go through the process to approve a sole source subsequent contract with Kittleson and Associates to do the design work for the additional work. The sole source justification for this is to avoid duplication of bringing a second firm on and potential conflicts of managing two different firms doing design work on the same project. And so we are asking tonight that the board would authorize the general manager to engage in negotiations for this sole source contract with a not to exceed amount of $145,000. And the reason it is to negotiate, as just as a reminder, architectural and engineering contracts have to be awarded based on qualifications first. And once the award has been made, then the prices are negotiated after that, and that's under the Brooks Act.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Director Kelly?
I assume that we've run by the idea of a sole source contract by our legal counsel, and it's our ability to do this is legal.
The district routinely enters into a sole source procurement without legal review. They've got standards, policies, and procedures to do that.
Okay. But we would be legal to enter into it.
Yes, as long as the justification's in the file.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we have a whole justification process and packet that I have to sign before we bring it to.
I'm just putting it on the table that we are doing things in the manner that we are allowed to do given certain situations.
Right. And that's good that we're covering our bases there to make sure we're legal. Any other comments or questions? Or are we ready for the motion? Director Ham?
I move the board to authorize the general manager to negotiate a sole source contract with Kittleson and Associates Incorporated for additional design, engineering, and National Environment Protection Act work needed for the construction of a signalized intersection at the entrance of the Keizer Transit Center at a cost not to exceed $145,000.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And now we're on to the next item, which is our commercial advertising resolution and policy.
Thank you, and Patricia Feeney, Director of Communication, will present the staff report.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. As you know, both this summer and this fall, we have been discussing the advertising standards at our work sessions, and the attached documents that you have in your packet reflect those discussions. They also include guidance from our legal counsel, but the two areas I wanted to draw your attention to in particular are the standards that we've established for both cannabis-related products as well as electronic cigarettes. Before the, what am I trying to say? We have not had an official advertising policy. We've been using our resolution. And so we have drafted a policy that would replace that resolution. And so I would recommend, or the staff would recommend, that the board adopt Resolution 2016-08 to establish Policy 117 for advertising on district property.
Do we have any comments or?
I'm glad to see it. Does anybody else have any other
Go ahead.
comments? Because I was going to, I was just going to move the,
I have a comment.
Okay,
Did you have a comment?
Not at all.
Okay.
okay.
I just-
Director,
Okay. We've done quite a lot of work on the policy and the resolution, and I know it reflects a lot of hours of discussion and legal counsel, and the purpose of it was to help bring in some extra funds because of the failure of the ballot measure back in 15. And but there's still a couple of points in there that I'm not comfortable with. So, and that's specifically the exceptions that are not clear. Trying to get my words out. So the allowance of the exception for gambling and the Oregon lottery should be excluded, I think, and that's because it seems to go against the ones mentioned. Moving papers. Okay. So the policy up at the top, I'm sorry, I can't find it.
Part about gambling?
Yeah.
It's I.
Okay. Okay.
This is where it reads, I don't know what.
Okay.
what that is yours.
Right. It's against the parts mentioned in 117.05 G through J, and it seems to be an activity that goes against those. So, and it doesn't seem to be protecting minors as part of our original policy. That's what I wanted to say.
I'm going to answer that.
other comments?
I move the board adopt resolution 2016-08 to establish policy number 117 for advertising on district property, thereby rescinding and replacing resolution 10-08 adopted on December 9th, 2010.
Okay, we have a second, and it's been moved and seconded. Now we have open for discussion. Any discussion?
I can understand Director Bush's concern about the gambling activity, but the Oregon lottery is legal in the state of Oregon. And as a legal entity and as a public body, we can have guidelines, and be as careful as possible on how we frame the information or how the information on the bus is framed. But as the lottery is legal in the state of Oregon, it is not, I don't think that limitation should keep the whole policy in limbo. It's already been a year.
At least. Other comments? Nope.
Whoops.
Director Hanman?
I pretty much concur with Director Kelly. I understand and appreciate Director Bush's concern. I think in this instance, the state lottery is pretty benign, and not just pretty benign, but for the action of the state and its various elements, including us, that I am not sufficiently concerned about that to deliver a no vote and reject this resolution.
Director Kelly?
One of the things is that if the lottery chose to do some advertising, we could maybe encourage them to also advertise their gambling the hotline for help if you have a gambling problem at the same time.
Are we ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
And that takes care of the action items, and now we're into the information items, and the first item is the service change update.
Thank you. Matt Berggren is going to make the presentation this evening.
Well, President Krebs, members of the board, I'm here today to talk about the upcoming service change in January of 2017. Just gonna get the technology working here. Never seems to work for me. Like, I don't need the PowerPoint, it's fine. So before I get started talking about our upcoming service change in January, I wanted to step back to September 2015. So that was the launch of Moving Forward, our major service change, where we redesigned most of our routes for Cherriots. And at the time, we had 6 goals for the Moving Forward project. It was to, here we go. Got it, Christian. Thanks.
Maybe.
All right, 6 goals. Huh.
Maybe you're going to have to sit here and hold it.
All right, got it. 6 goals. Frequent service, so more 15-minute service on our busiest corridors. Midday service to better reflect our ridership. We have a lot of midday ridership. Evening service, so having a standard where all of our routes start to wind down around 9 o'clock instead of 7, like some of the routes used to. Consistent service for most of the day, so a rider could know this bus is coming every 15 minutes, or every 30 minutes, or every 60 minutes. Reducing the number of one-way loops, large one-way loops, and reducing the number of transfers by having more crosstown routes that extend, for example, from Keizer to South Salem or West Salem to East Salem. So over the course of the last year or so, staff has been monitoring and evaluating and making slight modifications to the Moving Forward plan. But even throughout that process, there's been a number of issues that have consistently surfaced. So these issues are reliability, especially on our 15-minute service, our frequent service, the crosstown routes, the routes that are longer than we've had in the past. We've had a number of issues with buses being able to stay on time and being reliable for our passengers. Timed connections, especially at the downtown transit center. We used to be on a pulse system where we had a lot more 30 and 60-minute routes, and they were all timed together, and we have less of that now with the crosstown routes in the 15-minute service. So it makes it a little more challenging for some people to transfer downtown. And complexity. There's some people that get confused by the crosstown routes or the routes that have the letter A in them. There's a few things that are confusing to some of our riders. So we have a number of solutions to deal with some of those issues that have continued to surface. And before I get into the details of that, I want to talk about our goals. So we started with these 6 goals, and for the most part, we still believe in these 6 goals. But one change that we're making is instead of trying to reduce transfers, we're trying to facilitate transfers, especially at the downtown transit center. So we don't want to make it harder for people to get places by requiring a lot of transfers, but recognizing that the people that are transferring, trying to make sure it's as simple as possible to make those time connections, especially downtown. We're also adding 2 more goals, reliability and simplicity. And they're goals, but they're also more just focuses, things that we want to make sure we're very much focusing on. And those are all 3 things. Now we have our 8 goals. But the facility and transfers, the reliability, and the simplicity are what bring me to our solutions for our January service change. So in January, that's our every 4 months we do a service change. This one's a little bit more substantial than the last few. We'll be splitting all the routes that go through downtown. We'll be pulsing all of our 15-minute service that comes into downtown. So they'll leave at 0 after, 15 after, 30 after, 45 after the hour. We'll be eliminating our A routes. Sometimes that means like zipping routes together, and sometimes that just means taking the letter A out and replacing it with a number. And we're also going to try to eliminate all of our number overlaps. So for example, carts 10 and Cherriots 10. We want to make it so that it's not confusing where the bus is going to be going based on the number. So this is our new system map that'll be in effect January 3rd, Tuesday, January 3rd of 2017. And I'm just going to go route by route to explain the changes. So starting with Route 13, today this route goes from downtown to Chemeketa and back. But then from there, it goes and does a little loop serving the Civic Center and Salem Library. So as part of the splitting the routes, so it's easier to figure out where you're trying to go from downtown, we're going to have that part of the 13 now be called the 22. Other than that, it's the same route, same timing. If you get on the 13 up on Silverton Road and you come to downtown, the bus turns into the 22 and you can continue on to the library. So functionally, it's not different. It's just a branding change to try to make it more clear where the bus is going when you're downtown. Similar for our Route 6. Route 6 is a very long route, 2 hours round trip, and it extends down Mission, Fairview Industrial, all the way down into South Salem. And then once it gets back to downtown, it travels up Wallace Road to the Wallace Park and Ride and back. So just with Route 13, we're going to keep the southern part of the Route 6, but we're going to call this part the 16. That way it's very clear at downtown that the 6 is going south, the 16 is going west, but you can still get on the 6 and continue on as the 16, so you don't have to transfer. So it's just a branding thing, and it's just to help people at the Downtown Transit Center understand where they're going. Route 5 is also being split, so the east end will be Route 5 going down Center Street, the west end will go into West Salem. This split is more of a functional change, so all the Route 5 buses going east will go down Center, go up to Lancaster, come back to downtown, and then go back up to Center. They're not going to continue on into West Salem anymore. You'll have to transfer to Route 17 to do that, which looks like this. So by keeping these routes separate, we think that we'll be able to keep the 15-minute service on time. There'll be less bus bunching. Additionally, in order to eliminate the A's, there's a lot of confusion about, right now we have Route 5 and 5A. They each run every 30 minutes, but they're offset by 15 to provide that 15-minute frequency on Center Street. But then once they get up to the end, the east end, they go and do two different things. There's two smaller loops. It helps with coverage in those little areas, but it confuses everyone along the main corridor, Center Street, about what is the 5, what's the 5A, what's the difference. So for this route, we plan on wrapping those two loops together, creating a slightly larger loop, which will now provide a 15-minute connection to Route 2 and Route 11 at Lancaster and Sunnyview. And then with Route 17, we're doing a similar wrapping of the routes. So right now, Route 5 runs down Girth Street, and Route 5A runs down Patterson, 2 blocks away. We plan on wrapping those together and having all Route 17 buses every 15 minutes go down Girth. They'll still only go into Kingwood West and Capitol Manor every 30 minutes, but for the rest of the route, it'll be every 15. And for the end there for Kingwood West, it'll be very clear on the schedule. The ones leaving at the top and bottom of the hour will go into Kingwood West and Capitol Manor. The ones in between will not. We also have a similar change for Route 1. So today, Route 1 goes from Keizer Transit Center through downtown, down South Commercial. So we're bringing back the old number 19, the name of it, only it'll be, before it's every 30 minutes. It'll still, like Route 1 today, it'll still remain every 15 minutes. So this route goes from downtown to Keizer Transit Center and back. And then the southern portion of the old Route 1, or the current Route 1, will be called the 21, and that will go down South Commercial and turn around on Madras, as the Route 1 does today. So we're serving the same stops, still coming every 15 minutes, just like the Route 1 today, but they'll functionally be split. So if there's any issues like with traffic or construction down South Commercial, it won't affect people up in Keizer. And then you'll be able to make better timed connections with other 15-minute routes at the Downtown Transit Center. For Route 9 and 9A, the only difference between those two routes is at the very northern portion of the route, we have 2 one-way loops, very small one-way loops. One goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise. We're trying to provide that bi-directional service to prevent having one-way loops, but it's ended up confusing a lot of people. They don't understand what the 9 and 9A are, what the difference is. You have to know at the half an hour you stand on this side of the street, at the hour you stand on this side of the street. So we've decided just to have it like it used to just go one direction. So we picked to go counterclockwise based on the stop facilities, the quality of the bus stops. But now Route 9 will just go in one direction every time, so it's simple and clear. Route 8 and 18 is a little bit different. So today we have Route 8 and 8A, hourly routes that form that 30-minute corridor for about 75% of the route. For this one, all we're doing is renumbering the 8A to 18. So for a lot of our riders, when they hear Route 8/8A, the second they hear the A, they start to go, what? What does that mean? Why is it just like a normal route? How is it different? So there's something about that A that it throws them off. So what we're trying to do here is maintain the connection between the two routes. So we have the 8 and the 18. They still have that 8 in there, and we'll still produce them on the same print schedules, on the same maps as you see here, but they'll just both have numbers. They won't have a letter A in them. And same with the 4 and 4A will now be the 4 and the 24. So we're simply taking the 4A, making it the 24, no schedule changes. The bus still comes at the same time. It's just a different number. And finally, Route 10, which goes up 17th and Lansing and Hawthorne to the Kroc Center, will be renumbered to Route 23. And as I mentioned before, this is because of the conflict between the number Carts 10 and Cherriots 10, especially as we bring Carts into the Cherriots family more, the Cherriots brand, Cherriots Regional 10 and Cherriots 10 is going to be really confusing. So we're trying to start now by getting all of our numbers completely different. And I should have mentioned when we talked about the southern portion of the current Route 1, the reason we called it the 21 and not the 1 is because we have Route 1X, which is a joint service we have with SMART, and that's based on their numbering system. So once this change is done, the goal is to not have any numbers that are overlapping, so it's just very clear. If you say ride 24, you mean 24. If you want them to ride 4 or 24, you'll say 4 or 24. So we think it'll be much clearer and much easier for our customer service representatives, our operators, our transit operators, and just the public to understand themselves. And those are the changes. So those will go into effect on January 3rd, which is a Tuesday. It's our first day of service of 2017. Now, are there any questions?
Director Lincoln.
So if I wanted to go from Chemeketa down to the Salem Public Library, I'd go down to the transit station, and do I get off that bus then to take the little loop, or does it just change its numbers and change into a different number?
So you can still get on the Route 13 at Chemeketa, and yeah, you'll just stay on the bus. It'll change its number. It just stops for a minute and then it goes.
So it stops at the Downtown Transit Center, which is the beginning of the little southern loop.
Right.
And it changes its number.
And then it'll go to the library, and then it goes back to the Downtown Transit Center. And that's where it has its 10 minutes of layover time.
Okay, and then it changes its number again and then goes back out.
As a 13, yeah. It'll be 13 round trip, 22 round trip.
Okay.
13 round trip.
So this just is easier to designate those little loops, which all meet at the transit center.
Right.
Like the 5 going into the transit center, that changes its numbers and goes across as 16 or 17.
So the 5 and the 17 will actually be separate routes. So it'll go out of the 5, into the 5, out of the 5, into the 5. So
then you have to change buses for that.
We would have to change buses for that. So for the 5 and 17, which is the current 5 and 5A, and for the 19 and 21, which is the current Route 1, we are actually functionally separating them.
Okay.
Because those are the ones that have 15-minute service, and those are the ones that are having trouble staying on time.
Okay.
So we think that that's going to be important to allow for the pulsing. So they all pulse. They all leave at the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour, 15 after, 45 after.
Yeah.
The timing works out that way when you have them separate. And then also we have trying to keep them physically separate. So if there's an issue in South Salem, it doesn't affect Keizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have another bay for the people coming in on the 1 who want to go farther south. They're going to have to get out and go.
Yes. Yeah, they'll have to.
So that's going to be a little.
It'll be a little
complicated
different,
for a while.
But we think that this will help a lot more people. We think that the number of people that this will affect in a negative way will be very small compared to the number of people that having good reliability, the ability to transfer. Being able to go through from South Commercial to Keizer works really well if you want to go from South Commercial to Keizer. It doesn't work very well if you want to go from South Commercial over to Lancaster Mall, because then you have to transfer with routes that aren't timed together. So that we're trying to make it work better for more people.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Director Kelly?
And, well, and you used to have to change all the time. I mean, and just the length of the route and the complexity of the traffic in the streets just continues then to get the buses late, and then they're late through the whole through the entire area, rather than maybe only being late on the south end because there's been a traffic accident or something.
Right.
What about the 4 and the 24? We've got a page in our packet that has the 4 and the 24. Were there any changes?
Yeah, that was, the only change here is that the 4A is going to be called the 24, but the schedule is the same.
Okay.
It's going to come at the same time, it's going to come at the same
So it's
frequency.
another one of those where one point it goes on a loop, and so you're just changing numbers.
Yeah, so for the 8 and the 18, and for the 4 and the 24, they're both hourly routes, but they're offset by 30 minutes. So like all along State Street, you have a bus coming every 30 minutes. 1 hour is gonna, one half an hour is gonna be the 24, and that's gonna be the 4, then it'll be the 24. But we wanted to have the 4 in both numbers to kind of link them, and we're still gonna have them on the same print schedule, so you can see them together on the table to highlight that 30-minute frequency on State Street. But yeah, we just thought it was important to remove the A designation. And 14 was already taken up in Keizer, so we got to the 24.
Other
Any other
questions? This is just for our information. We're not taking action on this. And
No. And what kind of outreach is planned?
So we have, we'll be noticing all of the bus stops where there's routes being split. So that noticing starts on Monday. There's information there'll be information on a webpage that'll be featured on the homepage starting Monday. Normally we do it 2 weeks in advance, but since there's the holidays, we decided to do it 3 weeks in advance. So this is all on the 12th of December. We'll have information going on Facebook and Twitter. We will have announcements playing on the buses overhead for people who don't see the notices on the stops. And we'll have people actually out on the transit mall the first day helping people get acclimated. One thing that we thought was important is that at the downtown transit center, if you used to get on Route 1 to go north I can't remember, I think it's Bay A. If you used to get on Bay A, you'll continue to get on Bay A. So you don't have to, it's not going to be like moving forward where we're trying to direct people, like you used to get on over here, now you have to go over here. We can just say, if you used to stand here, continue to stand here, your bus will come. This may seem like a big change, but for most people, it's still at the same time, they're still going to be staying at the same bus stop, and the bus is going to come around the same time. So, especially at the downtown transit center. But we'll be out there the first day to help riders and also help take some pressure off customer service, because they'll have a lot to deal with for the first week or two.
Yeah.
other questions? Oh, Director Bush? Okay, well, thank you very much. I think you've given this some soul searching, and it's probably going to address some of these issues that we've been trying to resolve with the buses running late, and then you have 3 buses stacking up. And now you have, it's easier to slip another bus in too if they are only half routes rather than full routes.
Yeah, we can't make every bus be always perfectly on time, but the goal is to try to make it so that they're mostly on time in general, and then the exception is when there's a traffic accident or something that would affect driving anyway, something that affects the roads. Or a snow event.
That's what we hope, no events.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Another one, yeah.
So we'll move on to our next item, which we're now into reports, and we have the performance report for the first quarter.
We'll ask Matt Bergeron to come on.
Thanks. So I'm presenting on fiscal year 17, quarter 1. So that is July through September 2016. And then we always compare that to July through September of 2015. So that's comparable because of our seasonal fluctuations in ridership. So I'm going to start by talking about our changes by service. So revenue hours, then revenue miles, and then boardings. So revenue hours for Cherriots and Red Line are both up. Cherriots 8.1%, Red Line 11.3%. For Cherriots, it is largely a result of fixes we made to Route 1 back in November of last year. And the Route 1X, we used to have 4 round trips that we operated. Smart operates operate 7, we added on a 5th round trip. And then additionally, we added in the Route 15X, which is paid for by the state of Oregon, to get people from the Airport Road Park and Ride into the Capitol Mall area. So that's the reason for the 8.1% increase in revenue hours for Cherriots. For Redline, it's just a result of a few more trips on the Dial-A-Ride, but it's a very small service, so 11.3% is only a couple more hours. It's a very small amount. It just looks big in terms of percentages. Cherry Lift is down slightly. That's just it's been a slight drop in ridership. We've seen this for the last few quarters, and we attribute a lot of that to the eligibility program. And then Carts is pretty much on par with where it was last year. Revenue miles, very similar story. The only difference here is that for Redline, the increase is much more pronounced than it was for revenue hours. And that's because in the last year, we saw a lot of decreases on the Dial-A-Ride after the fare change, and then some increases on the Shopper Shuttle. And the Shopper Shuttle concentrates more people onto a trip. You pick up a few people and they all go to the same grocery store, so it's efficient in that way. The Dial-A-Ride is a little different. You're going from your pretty much your door, your curb, to your destination directly, and it might not be as much trip grouping. So where we saw only 11.3% increase in revenue hours, that was actually a lot of revenue miles because it was going farther. And then finally, boardings. Cherriots is down about 5.3%. Carts is down 4.9%. Redline, as I mentioned, up 16%. And Cherry Lift is down about 5%. And I'm going to dig a little bit more deep into Cherriots, as I've done for the last few quarters. So the top line is fiscal year 15. Then the blue line below it is fiscal year 16. And the kind of turquoisey line below that is this quarter that I'm reporting on now. So there you can see the number of daily boardings, average daily boardings by month. So for July, August, and September. So as I mentioned here, down 5.3%. That's down 5.3% from last year. So this kind of gives you the raw numbers and helps you see where the boardings are really at. We talked a lot about trying to compare the routes before moving forward to after, and some of the difficulties because they changed so much. So for July and August, in some senses we're still there. September, there's only a few days where we were, the service change went into effect on the blue line in September, on September 8th. So the first few days had the old routes, and then the last 3 weeks had the new routes. So September is not exactly apples to apples, but it's pretty much apples to apples. So you can see there, even with it being more apples to apples, we're still down a few percentage points. I think it's about 3%. This is another chart I've been showing for the last few quarters, but I actually expanded it going back to July of 2014. There's one interesting thing to point out is we were seeing ridership increases for quite a few months, and then in April of 2015, ridership started to drop. And then of course we saw the bigger drop in September with moving forward. Since then, since about this time last year, November, December last year, we started a kind of upward trend. But just to make it clear, we're dropping slower, but we're not going positive yet. We're not increasing ridership yet. So even if looking at September 2016, our ridership is still down 3.1%, and that is comparing more apples to apples. So we'll have to see over the next few months how that changes, and then how the service change in January affects that as well. I also started providing numbers in the report for the State Bus Pass program and the Route 15X. So tables 8, 9, and 10 in your report have that information. This chart here just shows the percent of people that are using, of our riders that are using the State Bus Pass. So we started with 1.6% in June with our soft launch, and going up to September, now we're around 2.8%. So 2.8% of our riders are using the State Bus Pass. So there's not much information here. It's still early on in the program. So in the next few quarters, we'll start to see how the trend goes, how many riders we're getting on the Route 15X, and how many riders we're getting from the state, using the State Bus Pass. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about changes by route. So like I was saying, we can't compare the whole quarter, fiscal year 16 quarter 1 to fiscal year 17 quarter 1, because still 2/3 of it wasn't apples to, we didn't have all of these routes for 2/3 of that time. So I've still not put the route by route comparisons up here. So just talking about how our routes are doing, our most productive routes are routes 1, 3, 7, and 11, and 4 and 4A. But next quarter we'll be able to compare October, November, and December of 2015 to 2016. So those were our local fixed routes. For our intercity routes, we have on the top, the gray bar was fiscal year 16, and then fiscal year 17, quarter 1 is the blue bar below. So our ridership on the 1X has actually been increasing, but because we added 25% more revenue hours, the efficiency is down. So we expect the ridership to continue to increase. We were seeing actually pretty big decreases of like 15, 17% on the 1X. And once we brought the state bus pass program and the new additional trips to help overcrowding on the 1X, ridership has actually started to increase slightly now. But yeah, the 1X still continues to stand out as our best intercity route, followed by cars 40, 50, and 30. And I'll also note that CARTS 10 was the only intercity route that actually had an increase in efficiency this quarter compared to last. So CARTS 10 continues to do pretty well compared to the rest of the routes. And that's one that the current proposal for the Cherriots regional service is to increase the number of round trips a day from 4 to 6 because it does so well, and there's so much potential for ridership between here and Woodburn. And then we have our demand responsive services. So CARTS 45 continues to be the most productive demand responsive service. We also have the West Salem connector. This looks like there's been a huge increase in ridership, which there has, but like with the moving forward issue, July and August of 2015, we still had routes 22 and 23 running alongside the connector. So it's not really fair to say, oh, we've had a 60% increase in ridership. We're not going to see that in October and November. We'll have to see what happens then. But you can see here that our boardings per hour is at about 3.5, which is pretty close to the CARTS 45. And then followed by the Red Line Shopper Shuttle, Cherry Lift, Red Line Dial Ride. And then the 25 and 35 are at the bottom, as they typically are. And that's it. That's performance for the quarter. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Director Kelly.
Just an observation, you have it in your written part of the report, but gas prices have been incredibly low for the last little bit, and I understand that they'll probably be going up because production is going to be cut in some places. So hopefully that gets more people into the bus too, because when the gas prices are high, we tend to pick up ridership, and when they've been so low, it's more tempting for people to drive.
Yeah, especially when people are making decisions, when their ridership patterns change, like if they move or they get a new job or their car dies, that's when they really make the decision, like, maybe I'll look at transit again and see if it actually works better for me now. So yeah, definitely when gas prices are higher, that changes the calculus a little bit.
Other questions or comments?
Just thank you. Very
Thank you.
thorough.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And so we're ready to move on to the Trip Choice first quarterly report.
Roxanne Rolls will make the presentation.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. This is the first quarter report for Cherriots Trip Choice. As I show you quarter to quarter, the total number of users that are using our Drive Less Connect database, which is where we match people up for carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, and walking. And each quarter, the number of people within the database grows. That's always a good thing. The more people in the database, the more likely there are people that are going to match. Number of new users in the first quarter went up dramatically, and that's because we were running the Drive Less Challenge. We always see a nice spike when we do that state-run challenge. So 212 people as opposed to last quarter where we had 109, so we really doubled. And as I've talked about before, within the database, people will run a match request. They'll put their information in and say, I'd like to find some people to carpool with. And quarter to quarter, the number of matches received is on the upward trend again, and that's because we have more people in the database. The second number is the match requests that are actually sent. Somebody said, I got a match of 12 people. I'd like to perhaps carpool with this person and this person and this person. It's still private information. It's all done through an anonymous email in the beginning until people choose to actually communicate. We attend a number of outreach events during the quarter. We held outreach events at the Department of Motor Vehicles for the employees there, Chemeketa College, and Spirit Mountain. We also sponsored the talk that Charles Marone with Strong Towns had done at the Lokes Library. And the Strong Towns program is a support for it's a model of growth that allows American cities, towns, and neighborhoods to become financially strong and resilient. And then you can see the picture there. That was the auditorium before he started speaking. It was pretty much a packed house by the time he came on the stage. We also held an outreach event at the ARC Center, the Polk County ARC Center. That's an organization where they support people with developmental disabilities and their care providers. And we went out to a summer event that they had just to meet some of their clients and talk to them about the services we provide. But for the first time, we participated in a Salem-Keizer school new employee orientation, which I was surprised that there were 300 new teachers coming into the district, as well as 75 new support staff. And the Trip Choice staff was there, and unbeknownst to us until the morning where we were packing, also staff from mobility management was there. And so we were sharing information about transportation options for staff, but the mobility management team, they were sharing information to educate the attendees about Cherriots travel training services, some of the services they could offer to the students, as well as lesson plans that the mobility manager has developed that are specific to transportation, that they can go and do a presentation in a classroom to talk about these, and they meet the Common Core standards that the teachers are looking for. So I was pretty excited to see that they had done the work to put those programs together. And as I talked about, the Drive Less Challenge, I could see the results on that are not that easy to read. Back to my notes. We did have increased participation. You can see in this next slide from the previous year, total number of participants in 2005, total number in 2005. I'm going way back. 2015, total participants in 2016. New users, we were very excited to see that many new users statewide. And of course, having a statewide database like this makes it so much easier for people, regardless of where their commute is. And the folks in Washington also use this database. So if we've got people going over the bridge, they only have to put their information into the one database. And then the statistics as far as total trips statewide. And these are trips that people took that they voluntarily logged into their database, either carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, or walking. So that, again, the number of trips went up significantly as well. And we have some new additions to our team. We added this quarter a permanent part-time rideshare assistant, Trip Choice assistant. Her name is Misha O'Reilly. She comes from the biking industry. She's worked at a number of bike shops, and she's already started our connection with the bicycling community and safe routes to school. So those are areas where we haven't had a strong presence. So I'm really excited to see what she's going to do there. And our other new addition. This is my office grandchild. You all know Kiki was expecting a baby. She gave birth to Bo Dion Doman in October, and he's just adorable. That's the quarterly presentation.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. You always give a very good report.
Thank you.
And so we'll move on to our next report, which is the finance report.
And Wendy Fett is going to make the presentation.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. I'm here to present the first quarter financial report, which covers the period of July 1st, 2016 through September 30th, 2016. And the purpose of this report is to give you an idea of where the district is financially by comparing the actual revenues and expenses to that which was budgeted and that you approved last June. First, we'll look at the general fund. The chart here has the farthest to the left is the actual expenses for each division, and the middle one is where the budget, 25% of the budget is, and then the last on the right is where the total amount of the budget for that year, for the year in that division. As you can see, the general manager and board of directors is at 18%, so well within the 25% of the budget. That's a good place. The administration division includes human resources and finance, and we're at 21% right there. Communication is new this year in the divisions, and this includes our customer service and as well as our marketing. And they're at 19% of their budget. Transportation development includes Transportation Development Administration and our IT, and they're at 24% of the budget. Operations is the big guy. This has our Cherriots route, our administration, our facility maintenance, our vehicle maintenance, the West Salem connector, and security is all in that budget. And we're at 23% as of September 30th. The unallocated general administration, basically these are expenses that are not attributed to one division, so they all go into one. And we're at 48%, and that's mainly because there's some expenses in there like insurance and membership dues and things of that nature that are one per the year, and they all come at the beginning of the year, so you get a lot of your expenses up front. But it should even out as the year progresses. As for revenues, we're only at 4%, but that is because primarily our revenue sources come from reimbursement basis, so they don't come till after we've spent a quarter's worth of expenses. And also our taxes, which don't start coming in until October, November. So that's why we're at September 30th, not very much revenue. The general fund expenses as a whole is at 23% of budget. Now we're going to move on to the Transportation Programs Fund, and under this fund contains not only your non-street services, but Trip Choice, which used to be rideshare, mobility management, and the call center are all under this in this fund. In operations, you have the cherry lift, you have red line, carts, and non-emergency medical transportation. And they're at 23% of their budget. Transportation development contains the Trip Choice, formerly known as rideshare, and they're at 16%. Communication includes the mobility management, travel trainer, and the transit ambassadors, and they're at 21%. Operating revenues are at 16%, and this is again attributed to reimbursement basis of a good portion of our revenues. Finally, our capital fund is only at 1%, and that is due primarily because we're in procurement stages and planning stages, and also because the budget's like 13 million, and if you've only spent 80 some odd thousand, it's not much. But that should increase as we enter contracts and start getting billed and projects start happening. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions? No, I guess not, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a comment. I thought that was very clear.
It looks like we're solvent for the first quarter. And that completes our action items, and then we are ready for our subcommittee reports, and so we need to call on those. Let me get my list here.
It's right behind there.
Right here. And so first one is Director Hamhill.
Right, no meeting this month. We are just starting our active period. We are, the bidders for Special Transportation Fund had their training session last month, and we are collecting their submissions at this time, and January is when we start working hard.
Okay, thank you. And the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, Director Kelly.
There was not a December meeting, but Director Lincoln attended the November meeting. So,
Go ahead and report on that.
yeah, because we haven't had a meeting since then, because we didn't
Right.
have the Thanksgiving meeting.
Right. Yeah, I attended the one on November 3rd, and the chairman noted that all of the acts kind of got together, the chairs got together in a super act meeting, and they all decided that it was really worthwhile to collaborate. There's a lot more collaboration among the area commissions, and a lot of support for transit. So, you know, it was kind of a feel-good situation, I guess, and everyone's cooperating, and transit is making its voice heard a little more. The chairman also said that they met with the OTC and a legislative committee, and the legislature essentially told the OTC, we used to do what the OTC told us we needed to do. And so you need to be more open about what you need and outspoken, and tell us what you think transportation needs are, and then we'll work on that. So I thought that was really interesting. And if the OTC hasn't been doing that, I expect that they will make more of an effort now to be more outspoken. And I know that transit is high on their list of interests, so that was kind of a good thing, I thought. And then, excuse me, the Oregon Highway Plan needs to designate some new freight corridors, and this is, I think, a federal requirement. So over the next year, in a year from now, we're going to work with the different acts to designate freight corridors in different communities, different areas. I don't know if that's going to affect us very much. I mean, we've got some freight corridors here in town that the buses use, but I don't know that new ones would make much of a difference. So that was about the only thing important. They're gonna looking at existing bridges and upgrading and bridges. That's a big priority. Of course, we're always limited by money. And they also said there would probably be no meeting in January. So.
Was there a presentation?
The carts redesign update was, that's right. That's right. There was, Ted was there, Ted Stonecliffe, and presented the carts update. Alan was there too, but no one had any extra questions.
Okay, thank you. And the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, Director Thompson.
We have our meeting next week, but we've had two executive sessions and planning for next week's meeting, plus the annual meeting that's happening next month that I hope everyone will attend, except me, and the work session, as well as we just spent an hour with on a website design subcommittee.
Thank you. And the next one is the Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Policy Study, SCATS, which I represented us at, and our general manager and our director or manager, Dickey, also attended that meeting. And the basic things that happened there was additional funds approved, a small amount, $500,000 to finish the Salem River Crossing EIS, and that was approved. And then we talked about the CMAQ funds, and Mr. Jaffe was here and explained that to you, that the CMAQ funds, that's an acronym for Congestion Management or
Mitigation.
and congestion mitigation and air quality, and it's money that's used to reduce gases in the metropolitan area, and we're now eligible to receive those, and they are used for projects that are not usually highway projects. They're usually transit or sidewalks or things that reduce vehicle emissions. And it looks like that we will have the option to get some money to buy some of the new buses to replace those that are aging, reaching their life expectancy in our fleet. We also are sending letters to the Oregon Transportation Commission in response to their handling of this, because they're redesigning the way the funds are distributed, and we're trying to make sure that Salem-Keizer and also the Lane County areas receive our fair share of funds in the new formula. Then the other things that happened, we had a big discussion on the recommended project list for the 2018-2023 Transportation Improvement Plan, and there was a long discussion on points of common ground for presentation that we could support with the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium as a paper that's being prepared for the 2017 legislature. That sort of went up and down because there were a lot of different opinions, and we didn't really, we supported some points, but there was a lot of points we didn't cover. The next OMPOC meeting, which is tomorrow here in Salem, and then at that time we'll be discussing the legislative agenda and other issues. And then we had a long workshop. This was one of the longest meetings of the SCATS organization that I've attended, but the workshop dealt with the greenhouse gas targets workshop. There was legislation passed requiring the metropolitan planning organizations to develop scenarios to deal with reduction of greenhouse gases. And one of the concerns was that there would be mandatory unfunded mandates coming down from the state level on the local region, requiring us to spend monies that we don't have to solve these problems. So we want to address these problems, but we want to make sure that there is funding somewhere in the pipeline to support the activities that have to be taken to follow these. And that was about that was a long discussion that lasted about an hour and a half. And then we adjourned, and the next meeting is scheduled to take place on January 24th. So that's my report on that. And the next item is the OMPOC, Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium, and that meets tomorrow. So I'll have a report at the next meeting for that. And with that, I believe we go on to the General Manager's report.
Thank you. I just have a couple items to report. So as you're aware, last week I attended the American Public Transportation Association's winter meetings in Washington, D.C. My 2 days there, I attended the board meeting of APTA, the legislative committee, and also the legislative reception, which we had at the House T&I hearing office. Lots of staff members there from legislatures, but not too many legislators. But I can tell you, Representative Blumenauer was there. I didn't get a chance to talk to him because he was one of the few. He had lots of people wanting to talk to him, but I talked to his staff members for a little bit. I also attended the Revenue Task Force committee meetings and the Small Operations committee meetings. Overall, I guess the tenor in DC is a bit up in the air. People are waiting to see what happens after the transition. But you have seen that President-elect Trump has recommended former Labor Secretary Lane Chow to be the Secretary of Transportation. From what we were hearing, that shouldn't be a difficult confirmation. It should go fairly smoothly, and probably one of the earlier ones to get confirmed because of her previous experience. Not sure what to expect out of her from a vision standpoint, but we will wait to hear that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about CMAC. Mike Jeffy stole my thunder a little bit, but I would state maybe to not be so assured that that $4.5 million is coming to transit until the process is done. So next week, OTC meets to approve that agreement we have. I will be there to make sure that happens. I do expect that to be approved, but then the SCATs has to then go through their process and award those monies. So I don't want to cut my eggs before they're hatched there, but we do have some projects that are much more ready to go, and that's one of the criteria. They need to be ready to go quickly, but we'll be very cautious to make sure that happens. Just since the holidays are upcoming, just remember we do not provide service on the Mondays after Christmas and New Year's, those designated holidays. This Saturday is the parade, so if you're either in the bus or attending the parade, keep an eye out for our bus. And last Friday, while I wasn't able to attend, I heard we had a great retirement party for 2 employees who retired last Friday. Rich Beebe, transit operator, and Patricia Beebe, his wife, customer service rep, retired last Friday. We had a great event right here in this room. Both of them were very pleased with the event. We've gotten thank you cards from them already. And because of their long-standing and active tenure, we had lots of retirees who attended. That's always a great sign. When we see them, they always look rested and refreshed and talk about how great retirement is. But so congratulations, and we thank them for their service to the Beebes. And that concludes my reports.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And my report is fairly brief this month. I attended a number of meetings, board meetings and so forth, and one Chamber of Commerce forum and one City Club meeting. And did a lot of volunteer work, charity work this last month, but it was not tied to the transit. Well, actually, it was tied to the transit because we did a couple fundraising trips for my Salem Downtown Lions Club using the transit services up to Portland. And we had, I took 20 people on 2 different occasions up to Portland using transit, and they were very excited with the trip, and we earned some money for the Lions charities program. So that was one of my endeavors this last month. With that, I'll call on Director Evans.
Well, this was an off month as far as activities, but I had an opportunity to visit with Representative Post, just kind of on the street, off the record, and encouraged him to support some transportation issues that are going to come up. And I have an appointment with Representative Evans next week through his assistant, and just to sit down and kind of see where he's at with issues at the state level. I had an opportunity to travel on the little shuttle in Leavenworth on a Saturday, which is extremely sad because we don't have that service on Saturday, and they do. They even have it on Sunday. Smaller venue, but still, it always makes me think every time I see a bus on a weekend that, you know, even at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday in Portland, I see a bus go by and I think, why can't we do that, you know? How are we so different? I think one West Salem Business Association meeting, I guess, and then our neighborhood association meeting was canceled, and so I missed that. That's about it.
Thank you. Director Bush?
Good evening. I hope you all had a safe Thanksgiving and looking forward to the rest of the holidays. I attended several meetings this month, several Keizer Chamber events, City Council at one City Council meeting, our new Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association, of which now I'm Vice Chair, was recognized as official, so that's fun. And they're putting together a float for the parade, so they'll be in that. Look out for them. They'll be playing kazoos. It's going to be fun. Attended a chamber luncheon honoring the veterans. I went to the City Salem reception for outgoing Mayor Peterson, Councilwoman Diana Dickey, and Councilman Bernards. Did I say that right? It was a very, very nice event, very honorable, and looking forward to the new guard, I guess you could call it, the new council people. I went to the Latino Business Association's Expo Negocio and learned a lot about integrating the two cultures and just getting to know another part of our community. Let's see. Oh, a ribbon cutting in Keizer for Mr. Video. There's a Mr. Video in the shopping area where Goodwill is. At Coffee with Kathy, we talked about the signal at the Keizer Transit Center, the roundabout. Traffic enforcement is difficult in Keizer because we only have one officer dedicated to that, so that was a big discussion. Another long discussion was about the urban growth boundary timeline for the Salem River crossing and plans for the future. It's a great time to go and meet your mayor and visit together. And again, at the Keizer City Council meeting later in the month, they did approve that decision. And Kathy's going to talk about an award that was received. Another thing, our neighborhood association was asked to provide cookies for a local elementary school. Whittle Elementary does an award every month for their readers that have met their reading goals. So we got together and took the cookies, provided cookies for all of those kids. There's like 300 kids who met their reading goals. And my husband and I went and sat through that, and the looks on their faces is, wow, this is for us. Just big eyes and great big thank yous, and it makes a difference when you give back to your community in a variety of ways. So, and I think that's everything. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Director Lane?
It hasn't been a very busy month for me either, but I did go to the West Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting and attended the Latino Business Alliance meeting, which was real interesting. Colleen and I both sat in on a presentation about cultural sensitivity and given by a woman whose father was from Czechoslovakia and mother was from Colombia, and talking about pretty funny things about the clash of different cultures in their household. I also attended the work session that we had here a few weeks ago. And then Colleen reminded me that Keizer recently was awarded a designation as a bicycle-friendly community, honorable mention. That's something that the Traffic Safety Bike Ped Committee, which I'm on for Keizer, put together and applied for. So it just means that we've done a lot of stuff to encourage bicycling. We've still got a ways to go, but it's a great thing to have on the map. It's good for business, and it lets people know that you're open for bicyclists and are a safe, friendly place to be on your bike, and hopefully walking too. We also talk a lot about safety, bicycling and walking safety, and like Mike brought up, big issue. There were 2 people killed on River Road, 2 pedestrians this last year, and that's just too many. It just really shouldn't happen. But so we'll keep working on that. That's about it.
Thank you. Director Kelly?
So I did the work sessions, and Kathy very kindly set in on the WAC for me. Most of my activity this month has been related to either my Kiwanis Club, giving away books, or serving coffee for 4 hours on the freeway, and holiday family sponsoring, organizing that for my church. So I have been a little bit lax on transit, however. I did go to the Oregon Business Summit in Portland on Monday. They had a session on transportation. They also had a session on people in poverty and issues regarding people who are struggling. And every time I go to one of those, I think about the people in Salem who cannot get to jobs on Fridays and Saturdays, or on Saturdays and Sundays, because we don't have service, and there are a lot of them. And so it's something that I'm hoping that we can all get behind, something for funding for transit in the state of Oregon, because it's not just us, it's everybody outside. And so hopefully we'll all be putting a lot of effort into that this coming season.
Director Thompson?
Well, it wasn't a very busy transit month either for me. I did attend 2 policy meetings at the Salem Chamber of Commerce. Both of them dealt with the outcome of the election and the outlook for the future at the legislature, and kind of negative stuff. I'm not sure. It was informative though, especially the part about how our ballot measure failed and why and things like that. Attended the mayor and council retirement recognition with Colleen. And then I was able to ride the train. I rode a train from the yard up here down to the carousel, and I was the conductor with my little hat and everything for all the kids when Santa Claus came to visit the carousel. So that was kind of a fun thing to do.
Sounds like a fun event. Director Hamill?
All right. Well, in addition to the regularly scheduled events here at Salem-Keizer Transit, I had a couple of things that were transit related. I attended the East Lancaster Neighborhood Association and set out for the North Lancaster one last night, but ran into a transportation jam that led to an early termination of that. But in the northeast part of Salem, when we were talking about retirements from the city council, it was almost all regarding Ward 6, and that it saved a little time on the agendas because the councilman report was not there, but it was more than made up for by the discussion about who would be good. So interesting discussions. And I did talk to them about the upcoming route numbering changes and found that if you were not a current rider, this is not very newsworthy, which is okay, because I figured it would be pretty tricky to explain if somebody was a big current rider. The only question they asked, though, that I couldn't answer was, are they changing the names of the routes? And in the material that was presented at the work session, only a couple of routes had identifications as to what the route names would be. So I responded with a hearty, I don't know. The one piece of information that was relevant for us as a group is that one Cherry Lift user said that she was on hold at TripLink for 20 minutes and never did get an answer because she had something else to do and hung up. My experience with TripLink since the change about, 18 months ago, has been that it's been good. That was the only report I've heard so far of an excessive wait. So might be something to take a look at again in the near future.
Thank you. Is there anything else for the board to discuss this evening? If not, then we will
Safe holidays.
First wish all of our constituents a happy holidays and best wishes from the board, and with that we will adjourn.
John, I spent an hour
See you next year.